Disclosure. I have zero formal training in psychology or anything else, number one. Number two, it should be assumed that any paradigm and any system of dealing with addiction or anything else for that matter is incomplete. And so the trick as the viewer, as the digester of information, is to determine how much of the territory is covered in a given source, number one. Number two, is it useful? Number three, how fuzzy is it? How in focus is it? How integrated is it as opposed to contradictory? And all that comes back to, is it useful? I am an addict and have spent roughly 40% of my life energy in conflict, in compulsion with myself. And what I'm going to touch on here is a brief map at the pieces of addiction that mean something to me, that are useful to me, that I have not located in other sources. Now, to supplement this, if you're a man, I recommend the book Iron John. If you don't know a lot about trauma, I recommend the book The Body Keeps the Score. I recommend Gabor Mate's work on addiction. I encourage you to look at Russell Brand's book on addiction. And I encourage you to join a 12-step program and or support network that feels capable of holding the intensity of the charge that you're dealing with. I also want to introduce a few concepts and in this paradigm before getting too deeply involved. And the first thing is to say that addiction begins with a wound. That we have a symmetry coming into our personal ego identity. We have a symmetry of probability. Every child can learn any language, can learn any culture, can explore the full range of feelings. And this culture is going to simultaneously cut away parts of that individual, the vast majority of the parts of that individual, and is going to hone and develop certain qualities. In this way, the birth of the ego, the one that says this is me as opposed to this is not me, begins with a wounding, with a certain genocidal massacre of the probability field. Because the probability field says you can learn any of 10,000 languages in human history. You can attune to any of 10,000 cultures in human history. You can learn Japanese and learn to eat sushi, or grow up in a bush tribe and learn to fight, stay alive fighting tigers or zebras. You can do any of these types of things. But most of that is going to die off, and a very small bit of the psyche is actually going to be developed into an individual expression. Much like the experience of, or paradigm of Michelangelo, who said that what he does is he cuts away at everything that is not that image. And what remains is the individual sculpture. And so each ego is an individual sculpture in which the vast majority of self is cut away. Now, the parent and the culture inflicts the wound. You have the symmetrical probability field, and you have the sword. And the sword is dividing things into the duality of our paradigm, of our reality, and is saying this is good, this is not good. This is who we are, this is who we are not. Now, it is inevitable in that paring away process that the best parts of us and the worst parts of us are lost because of the crisis of vision and the crisis of imagination that is at the root of any status quo, is at the root of any cult. So within the chaos, within the totality and the symmetry of the probability field, you have, things like, just being completely unconscious, dying early, not even knowing things, just copying monkeys if you don't grow up around human beings. That's also probable. If a child is born in a herd of monkeys and no contact or no language, etc., it's not clear from which perspective that might be horrible versus pretty stress-free life, pretty interesting, free rent, organic food, or is in some way exalted. You learn to develop the kind of smell to smell, more than 1,000 plants at up to 30 yards. And this is happening, that's happening, and the brain will develop the acuity to attune to the culture, to the other mammals of whatever tribe, of whatever predisposition are around them. And as this sword enters, the not this, but this, not this, but this, what's often left is a certain mediocrity. Stuff that is not too high to offend and upset the culture, and stuff that is not too low to shame the culture. What emerges is an imperfect system that creates waste in proportion to its ignorance or lack of imagination. If you're in any environment that says, I don't want this and I don't know what to do with this, we call that garbage. We're dealing with a poorly designed system. You look at a plant, banana tree produces bananas, and one of two things happen. They either fall to the ground and fertilize the banana tree and new banana trees grow, or animals eat them, add nitrogen to them, shit them out, and fertilize the banana tree even more than if they just fell to the ground. And for the banana tree, there's no waste. And for the person who eats the banana peel in nature, there is no waste. The banana peel is fertilizer. Could be dried for writing on. There's a whole variety of things. Could be composted, could be left there, and the organisms of nature will all feed on it and generate fertilizer for the banana tree. Zero waste. You look at the human system, and there's all kinds of things we create for temporary use, and then there are waste products. In other words, we turn energy into a formation that we don't know what to do with. And then we say, I don't know what to do with this. Let's put it in this can. And the can is emptied by a truck that says, I don't know what to do with this. Let's haul this off somewhere. And they say, we don't know what to do with this, so let's transfer it to a hole in the ground or a big fire just to get rid of it because we don't know what to do with it. And then it's either a huge pit in the ground with stuff that nobody wants in their backyard, or it's polluting groundwater, or it's polluting the atmosphere. But either way, we don't know what to do with it, so get it away from here. And that's how you know you're in a crude and inefficient system. When the average American is going to generate 102 tons in weight of garbage over a lifetime. When a 200-pound object is going to create a 100-ton object, more than 1,000 times more waste than the object itself. And so for every unit of weight of the object, you have 1,000 times of waste. Meaning for every unit of energy, there's 1,000 units created that you don't know what to do with. Because that's all garbage is. See, nature knows what to do with all energy and has it in an integrated, complex system. And then we come along and say, no, I have another plan. Let's do this with this. Let's turn this into this. Let's turn this to this. And then let's turn this, and then we'll turn this into this. And then we don't know what to do with any of this, so let's throw it in a big hole. Well, it's obviously not very well thought out. And so we have waste emotions. We have waste feelings. Oh, I don't want to talk about those feelings. We have waste thoughts. That's a bad thought. Go away thought. We have waste people. We've got millions of homeless people roaming around in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And we just tell them to go away. The one city says, why don't you go over here? And then the other city says, no, go back over there. And the police say, well, not around here. And the other police say, not around there. We've created waste people. People we are so dumb we don't know what to do with. Things we are so dumb we don't know what to do with. Technologies we don't know what to do with. Tools we don't know what to do with. Time we don't know what to do with. Food we have created a phenomena that turns energy over the course of a lifetime into 1,000 times more energy that we don't know what to do with. And so you're in a flawed system. You're in a mediocre system when there is waste present. When you're in a system where every single human being is valued, where there is something useful to do, for example, moving in the positive direction, Tesla will pay a hacker anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000 for hacking into a Tesla car. So this is turning the idea of a hacker as a liability, as the bad guys, into the most valuable people around. Because what the hackers are doing is they're pointing out poor coding. And they're teaching Tesla's coders. And so Tesla values the education and the security of its customers so much that anyone who can hack a Tesla system is instantly paid. So Tesla has turned the phenomena of an enemy into an ally and thus eliminated waste. That's moving in the right direction. Now, within a crude culture, within a crude parenting system, most of what a baby brings into the world is viewed through the crude eyes of the system as waste. I don't like that crying. I don't like this. Excrement. I don't like this noise. I don't like to do this. I don't want to hold this baby. I don't want to. It's a phenomena where enormous probability is brought into the world of the parent, and they don't know what to do with most of it. It's not surprising, because we don't teach and we don't study ecological design. A dumb banana tree has a more intelligent system than we do, whether it's education, whether it's in transportation, whether it's garbage, whether it's homeless people. See, there aren't any homeless banana trees. There aren't any homeless monkeys. There aren't any monkeys that can't pay rent. These systems are culturally created. So what happens at the core is, as the sword of the culture and the status quo enters the system of the individual psyche, there is, of course, pain, there is trauma. As parts are cut away and asked to die, and other parts are elevated and curated. Oh, could you do more of that? Oh, I like that. Do that again. You know, the circle smiles and blesses that child, like, oh, that's a good thing right there. Go do that again, and I'll give you a little candy, or I'll smile at you, or I'll take you on the next walk. You'll be my favorite. So you have a selection process. In biblical terms, it began with Cain and Abel. Why the fuck couldn't God accept both sacrifices? You see, and this is where you come into the original flaw in any system. Because let's look at the Cain and Abel story. And heaven help you if you're in massive addiction right now and, just want to get on with it. My sincere apology. This is not going to be necessarily terribly useful until this is all over and you're able to integrate and, get to an AA meeting or, a 12-step meeting if you need that emergency kind of support. But what I do want to do is create a tapestry of thought and paradigm that by the end of this will give you the ability to hold more of this in your consciousness, in your mind, in a way that makes sense. So bear with me, those of you who can. In Cain and Abel, you have the sacrifice. So one sacrifices apples, herbivore, hunter-gatherer. The other sacrifices an animal. They both burn their sacrifice. See, and this is where you have the object, you have the paradigm or filter equals the result. So the flaw is not in the object. It's in the paradigm. So the game is rigged before it's even begun, because who came up with the bullshit that said that sacrifices have to be burned? Who came up with that shit? This is completely arbitrary. So you have a sheep, I forget which one it was. Was it Abel? Abel grew a flock of sheep, right? And then sacrificed. Who came up with that shit? It's like, what kind of a sacrifice is it to take another animal, chop him open with a knife, take out a bit of meat, stick it on, a fire, right? And then who said that there was a god rather than a goddess? That's paradigm. Who said that God wants a sacrifice as opposed to a feast? That's paradigm. And who said the way to tell whether the sacrifice is received or not received is how the smoke goes? That's paradigm. And who said that God's such an idiot he can't have a conversation with his own children? I mean, you talk about the strong silent type. That's paradigm. The whole fucking thing is paradigm. So you play the game, you say, okay, we're going to see whether God likes our sacrifice. This is the little game between two brothers, right? We all know we have to do a sacrifice. How do you know that? And we all know we have to start a fire for the sacrifice. How do you know that? And we all know that we've got to put the fruits of our labor on the fire. How do you know that? And we all know that if the smoke rises straight, then God is pleased. And if the smoke goes crooked, God isn't. How do you know that? Well, see, this is where it all falls down. There is no underlying logic to a lot of this stuff. Oh, you can construct one. You can say, well, flame is about purification. Okay. What about soil purification? What about the fact that water purifies as it goes through different layers of soil? That's also purification. Or what about the dilution of toxicity in water? If you if you put a drop of iodine in the ocean and then drink a bit of ocean water, are you going to have the same effect as just drinking iodine? No. So it's not, there's underlying logics to all of them. And this is where we come into the 10,000 cultures in human history and all of that. So the very setup is predisposed to favor the meat. Meaning, if you want to win this game, and that's what it is, it's a game. If you want to win the game, and the game is whoever produces something the game is being blessed by God in the fictitious sense of whatever we've invented God to be, right? So that's the game. We've invented this God, and we've decided that we should be blessed by the God. That's the game. And we've decided that smoke rising is the game. So you start with the end in mind. Okay, we want some smoke to rise. Okay, if that's how we're going to define winning the game, what things leads to smoke rising? Why don't I grow, how about I grow some wood for my labors? Then I will win over the meat, because the meat has moisture in it. But what about I'm going to plant trees, then I'm going to cut the trees to sacrifice them to God, and the smoke is going to go right up. Or it's certainly going to go up more than it is going to for some meat, which has a lot of moisture on it. So how about that? Then you win the game. The trouble is that Cain and Abel apparently didn't think this through. So one grew apples. And then why did he sacrifice the apples rather than the apple branches? You have to prune an apple tree. Why not sacrifice the prunings? That would have gotten rid of the disease, kept the apples to eat, which presumably one of the points, and then the meat. The other guy that's more intelligent, isn't it? You think if intelligence, the efficiency of turning energy into human well-being, why not get rid of the prunings, have smoke that rises, and not have to kill your own brother because he was favored by God and you weren't? Because what I'm getting at, and the reason this is so important to understand, is that this goes on every day. I have articulating talent in a cult that obsesses about articulating talent. The metric, so let's just focus on that, articulating talent. Or Buffett is gracious enough to talk about the fact that his facility of numbers would have been absolutely useless in the 12th century. Meaning if Buffett was born to a Native American tribe in the 12th century, with this great abstraction to carve out numbers on trees, so he just sits around carving interesting shapes and doing number calculations on birch trees, while the other Indians make canoes, or Native Americans make canoes, he'd have been the biggest loser around because the game shifted. And in that game, it was who came back with the salmon, who came back with the bison, not who had little notches on birch trees. So Buffett would have been the biggest loser around. If Buffett was born a woman in a radical Islamic country run by the Taliban, his showing interest in mathematics might get him killed and might get his family branded. But in the United States, at this moment in time, in a game that's all about turning bits of paper into more bits of paper, called investing, Buffett is the biggest guy in town. Why? Because that's the game. And he's good at something that lets him win the biggest game in town. The biggest game in what town? In our town. Who invented it? We did. Who invented Cain and Abel? We did. We made up the story that God likes burning things. We made up the story that God was a man. We made up the story that he was too dumb to talk and have conversations and just say, hey, God, would you like some apples? Would you like some prunings? We made up the story that he was too dumb to talk. And then we made up the story that apples should be burned instead of apple prunings. And then we made up the story that he wasn't pleased. And, as every human being in the history of humanity has found, when you love something enough to work, and see, prayer is action. Bullshit, you go off to a church once a month or once a week and you say, blah, 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 blah. No, every single moment of every single day, we're taking action. We're acting. And as we do, we're praying to the gods we serve, the goddesses we serve. We want things done more efficiently. We pray to the god of efficiency. How do we do that? We take notes. We organize our day. And that's how we pray to the god of efficiency. We pray to the god of money. How do we do that? Well, we think constantly, not what would I enjoy or what would make my wife happy or what would do this, but what would make more money. That's praying to the god of money. We pray to the god of appearance. Not by saying, oh, this feels really comfortable, or who cares about clothes and stuff. Let's really connect. No. Who are you? Why? I don't need to connect with you. I need to look perfect. So we pray to the god of perfection. We pray to the god of appearance by buying this weird makeup that has toxic chemicals that aren't labeled, by doing this and that. So it's a constant process of praying in every moment to all the gods and deities that are present behind every single behavior. So we've got a constant process of prayer. And whatever we believe is the important God, and it ultimately comes down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We want to survive. We want to feel secure in our survival. We want to feel love and belonging. We want to have self-esteem, and it goes on from there. But these are important core things. This is the domain that we're in when we're looking at addiction. So if everyone around you, see, because these are the games, and the reason Cain and Abel is relevant is it happens in every single family. There's 5 siblings. One sibling doesn't have a talent that fits well in the game. Another one has the perfect talent for the game. Now, the game is always made up. It's always arbitrary, and it always comes from the cult. And the process of the cult is you have the government and the cult collude to decide what's important and what to emphasize and what we don't want and this, that, and the other. And they set out a list of things. We like these people, for example. We like high IQ people in our cult. Now, this is not objective. You take someone who has Down syndrome. Little or no IQ, right? But they're able to bring joy and innocence at a level impossible for anyone else in the cult to bring. Well, if you were praying to the god of or goddess of joy and innocence, we'd all be praying for Down syndrome children. We say, no, they can't get anything done. If they don't get anything done, how can they buy a Mercedes? If they don't buy a Mercedes, how can they look better than the neighbor? Don't you see? It's terrible. No. This is terrible. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You have a Down syndrome child. Oh my goodness. My goodness, you're surrounded by joy and innocence and raw emotions and vulnerability on a constant and daily basis. How terrible. How terrible. Well, anything I can do? You see, it's looked at through the lens of the cult, through the paradigm. There was a time the sacred fool, the jester, was the most important person in the palace, the one that could point out the stupidity, the pomposity of the cult, of the dogma, the overriding deity, because all deities are toxic in the extreme and healing in the context of symmetry, in the context of balance. So you have the government and cultural dogmas and paradigms and dictums that determine what the sacrifices are and what's received and what isn't. Oh, your son has a 200 IQ. He was hired by the CIA in order to do code cracking, to figure out which bombs to drop on this other country. Oh, very important, right? Very important. Whip-de-doo, right? So the government and cult puts pressure on the adults, on the parents. And the parents know. We behave like this, the cult and the government is pleased. If we can make the smoke rise vertically, there's a blessing. And big rewards were given to Buffett, right? He gets to hang around with the other people who were blessed, right? Be written about on important magazines. So he gets survival, security, love and belonging, and self-esteem. Just a guy. A bit dumpy. A little bit awkward socially. A good guy. Not tall, dark, and handsome. Just a guy. Just a guy. A guy upon which billions and billions of the highest deification in the land is poured onto for the simple ability to analyze stocks and say no 99.99% of the time. That's what Buffett does. Every day, looks at all the paperwork and says no, 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 10,000 times. And then one time, from time to time, he says yes. The switchboard opens up, money pours out of his digital account into another digital account. People wait with bated breath. It's the new game in town. What will happen with that stock? Buffett invested in this. What is it? What is this? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Oh, let's have you on the cover of this. It's an amazing thing. It's the biggest game in town. The Wizard of Omaha, the person who predicted which numbers went up more than any other person. Amazing. We don't have a cult that measures the kindest people in town. We don't have a cult that measures the best weavers in town. We don't have a cult. I mean, yes, we do a little bit of a Michelin thing. It's a little bit political with all their, underlying stuff. But, we don't say this was the best mother in 3,000 years. We don't even bother tracking. We don't even know how to measure a mother. That's how unimportant mothering. But boy, do we know how to evaluate hedge funds. Hedge funds. Funds with hedges? What? No, they hedge. They hedge things. What do you mean they hedge? Well, they make sure if they place a bet this way, that they place another bet the exact opposite way, so that even if they're wrong this way, they don't lose all the money, and if they're right, they don't make as much money. So they hedge everything. They contradict themselves constantly, and that way they can't lose as much. It's a hedged bet. What does that have to do with hedges? Oh, it's a completely different word. We just decided that hedges could mean plants and paradoxical bets at the same time. Well, who decided that? We did. It's a joke. It's a game. The whole thing, a game. The culture dictates to the parent. The parent dictates to the child. When I say dictate, the parent is trying to cut off with this sword the bits that this cult doesn't like. And it's trying to nurture, come on, smile, be outward and go, be outgoing, be a team player, Come on, hit that ball. Oh my goodness. Babe Ruth, still talking about him. He hit a ball. Incredible, Hit a ball. Don't worry about your psyche. Don't study mythology. Don't study esoteric math. No. Hit the ball. Smile. Get a pretty girlfriend. That's the game in town. Oh, I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of you. You hit a ball. Where did you hit it? Out into a field. It's amazing. So the cult decides what the game is. And usually, it's incredible arrogance at some level to say, this is the game. Well, what about this other game? No, that other game doesn't matter. Why? Because this is the game. Yeah, but why? Those other games, don't worry about those games. Those cultures over there, bullshit, complete bullshit. What were they thinking? Over there playing what? Horse polo? What were they thinking? We run into each other. We know how to, it's like you get big, heavy guys and they have to eat a lot. Well, isn't that bad for them? Fuck off. They have to eat a lot. They've got to run into each other and see who falls over. Well, what about that polo horse game? Oh, fuck off. Who needs that? Who needs horses? We've got big fat guys. And they'll bang into each other and injure each other. Oh, it's a very important game. Very important. I don't want to be injured, Dad. What? You don't want to be injured? Goodness gracious. What are we going to do with our son? He doesn't want to be injured. How are we going to be blessed by our cult in this all stuff? So you have a constant pushing to conform because you don't want to be cut up with this sword. You don't want to be thrown out into the bit that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's stupid. It's all stupid. You're thrown into the pile of waste. Michelangelo, as I say, just cuts away the stuff that doesn't have, shouldn't be there. Says who? Says Michelangelo. Maybe there was a much better design that Leonardo would have done, but Michelangelo didn't see it. Well, in that better design, that bit that he just cut off wasn't waste. That was an important piece. Well, Leonardo isn't doing the sculpture. Michelangelo is. So it's waste. What does he do with a pile of rocks left over? Oh, it doesn't matter to throw them out in the forest. Doesn't matter. At least you don't have to incinerate them. They're just rocks. Well, we'll use it for street paving, you know. So in this process, the ego of the child is being cut up, is being given cues. No, don't do that. Yes, very good, very good. Here's some allowance for you. You're going to go places in this game. So this is going back and forth. Now, nobody likes being cut up into pieces. Nobody. So the child has a switch, that has part of the psyche is to protect the integrity of the psyche. The child has fits and tantrums and flails around. But it's just 2 feet tall, weighs 5 pounds. He can't defend himself. Parent says, you're going to drink this horrible formula, whether, sure, you'd like to drink my milk or something else, but this is the way it's going to be. You spit it out. Well, I'm going to put it back in your mouth. You're going to spit it out. You're going to put it back in your mouth. So there's this switch, and maybe at some point you spit it out and the mother starts cursing and raging, how dare you ruin my day? And, oh my gosh, am I going to die? Am I going to die because I didn't want this fucked up formula? Am I going to die? This woman's gone crazy. She wants to kill me. I see it in her eyes. There's a switch from protection to betrayal. The protection is saying, get this fucking stuff out of my system. I want this other stuff over here that I know is good for my body. But then the defense system is saying, oh my gosh, you've got a 2,000-pound giant standing over you who wants to kill you, who could do so at a single fucking moment. New plan. Let's drink the formula. Instantly, there's peace on the mother's face. She's not going to kill you. Wonderful. But you've just betrayed your own body. And this switch, what you learn is that every time you betray yourself, things go well for you. Not inside and all that, but the giants are happy every time you betray yourself. So you've got innocence in here that's just giving authentic feedback. That's dinging up my circle. That's cutting off my ability to do here. That's chopping the system down here. This bit no longer functions if I don't do that. And so you have the circle that's trying to defend its probability field, its greatest potential. And you have the cult that's trying to pare it down to what remains in a way that's useful for the game of the cult. So protecting or betraying. Now here's what's going on with addiction. You're 2 years old, you're 3 years old, you're 4 years old. You couldn't stand whatever it was that was going on. You tried to fight, and you got bullied into cutting yourself open, into betraying yourself to avoid the hostility, the hate of the parent. And so you flipped the part of you that was defending yourself by saying no, decided that the new defense was to defend yourself by saying yes. The part of you that was trying to survive, feel secure in that survival, feel love and belonging, and feel a sense of self-esteem, switched from saying, no, to, oh, yes, please. That's a great, another brilliant idea, Mom. Who came up with these brilliant ideas? You did? Amazing. All by yourself? Oh, the other cult was in on it? Amazing. It's like, wow. With ideas like that, I might as well just, go numb, close my eyes, become a complete idiot, and just sit around waiting for more. There, that's the kind of child I want. Why can't you be more like your brother? He knows how to poison himself when I tell him to. He knows how to stuff his emotions when I ask him to. He's wonderful, wonderful. So the protection mode switches from asserting the boundary to betraying the boundary and colluding with the abuser. Now this forms a series of beliefs. The belief is, when I do what the people in power say, I go up. I grow. When I do stuff like this, things get good for me. And I survive. I feel secure in my survival. I'm loved and I belong. So let's figure out who's the powerful person. And let's figure out whatever bullshit they're going on about. And then let's agree with them. And things will go well for us. Oh, my little boy, working for the CIA. He was the one who came up on with the location to drop the nuclear bomb in Hiroshima. He figured out the place that would kill the most people. He's brilliant, brilliant. And so you have love and belonging. And so they're set on it. They experience great success, betraying the psyche, betraying the probability field, and colluding with the parent, the culture, and the wounding process, the paring away process. And they never had it so good. Lying, ignoring vast regions of the psyche, numbing out and dissociating about this. They never had it so good in their life. The rain, the time of milk and honey, gold-paved streets, mom smiling, at least more than before. And there's a contract signed. We're going to call this whole thing love and development. And okay. You never have any feelings of your own? Okay. You're a boy, so you don't feel sad? Okay. You're a girl, you don't drive trucks? Okay. We don't eat potatoes in this house? Where did that come from? Oh, grandmother had some weird business, and we don't like in our family we don't like potatoes. Okay, don't like potatoes. So there's a contract that goes on, and then it's set. Like, okay, it's going along well. Do you like potatoes? No, I don't like potatoes. Do you like driving trucks? No, that's a boy's thing. Icky. Well, good. Going along well. The contract is being filled out. And the child parts that, betrayed the psyche, they're happy. And they know, whatever you do, you see all these bits are being chopped off. All these bits are being chopped off and thrown away as, hated. Get rid of those vile parts. They're all being chopped off. And then these other parts are being elevated. It's like, do you know how to do algebra? No. Well, it's a very important subject. Really? How often do you use algebra, Mom and Dad? Well, never actually. I don't. In fact, I don't think I've ever done an equation since I was in high school. Really? But it's really important to learn. Oh, very important to learn. Okay. Don't ask questions. Part of the contract. Don't ask anything intelligent. So we have these personas at young ages that basically knew they were going to get slaughtered and killed if they spoke up for it themselves. And then they agreed to put all their weight on the side of the abuser to chop away at parts of their own self. Oh, Mommy, I'm so sorry I didn't kill enough of myself today. How would you like me to... let me just take a break and I'll go back to chopping my arms and legs off with a machete. I'm sorry you have to chop some of... if I had done my job, Mom, you wouldn't have to chop me up with a machete. But I was too lazy. You see, what happened was I cut this arm off with a machete. Then when I went to hold the machete to cut the other arm off, I couldn't do it. Oh, well, thanks for apologizing. I'll chop the other arm off tomorrow. Go to bed and have some formula, right? So, there's this nice collusion. Mom and the little boy, Dad and his girl, conspiring, rupturing the marriage, competing, you're better than that, than this one, and go tell your mother how, what an idiot she is, this, all this underhanded, dark stuff. Oh, we're a happy family filled with endless lies. So you have these whole sets of adaptive young personalities that figure out that the best way to survive in a fucked up cult is to betray the psyche, betray the greatest possibility you have as a human being, and to become enmeshed in the cult, and cut yourself down to size, and do this and do that and all these weird things. And it really is sick, this women in corsets and this and that, it's just so arbitrary. There's so much unnecessary suffering. And so you've got these parts that are committed to suppressing and lying and avoiding and, this, that, and the other. So at some point, the pain from chopping yourself up or being chopped up, from being divided and disintegrated, the pain reaches a point that is unbearable. But it's not allowed to be talked about. What do? You can't talk about it. That's part of the contract. That's part of the fine print. Do you agree, having participated in 3 genocidal massacres in the 0 to 2 range, another one in the 2 to 5 range, another one in the 5 to 10 range, do you agree, having participated in several genocidal massacres, never to talk about the feelings of being massacred or being asked to massacre oneself? 1. 2, to pretend that this was great parenting experience and just the kind of thing we need more of. 3, to avoid all displays of deep emotion that might indicate the gravesite. Sign here. Okay. You're not going to bully me anymore today. Not if you sign the contract. Okay. So we've got this. Now we come into the present. And we've been living with this shitty contract, denying these feelings, burying this part of us, lying. And this is a good time as any to read a little story I wrote prior to sitting down here that ties in with some of the work that I've been doing over the last few months to dig up the corpses. One day I saw a hand sticking up out of the mud. It scared me. So I threw some leaves and dirt over the hand and looked the other way, afraid that anyone would see me burying the hand. Then an arm grasped me one night while I was sleeping. A voice filled with mud reached out from the dark unknown in a commanding tone. "Dig me out! Dig me out!" I did not know what to do, so I ran away to my mother, and she soothed my fears of the unknown, adding sugar to my tea to sleep me down into the drone of social talks with the women gathering and politely doing crochet. How would such dainty fingers, their bodices and corsets cutting such refined figures, their pinkies adjusted at just the right angle, sipping the finest tea in slender cups, how could women as perfect as these know anything about such dark things? Yet they were the ones with pitchforks and sharp knives who drove him down into the muddy riverbank, shouted at him to go away, throwing rocks in a joint attempt to silence his voice. They cursed him as he lay naked and watched gleefully as the mud from the banks of the river fell over his body, burying the face of a god and revealing the demure but false face of the tame, shamed boy. They could keep an eye on as he played, tied to kitchen furniture on a string woven with the eyes of the witch, the eyes of a demon, determined to attack and lash out at anything great, at anything beautiful that threatened the sanctity of their prison. They will all get up and leave, pretending that nothing was going on. Rather than face the crime, they lack the grace to atone for. In other words, inside the mother, inside the cute little girly face, there's a demonic witch, busy turning the levers, trying to destroy that which is beautiful, that which is true, that which is good in the husband, in the lover, in the boy, in the man. To tie him around their finger with the witch. Preferring to walk away silently rather than own the cowardice, the betrayal, the cruelty they have all enacted towards the masculine inside, towards the king inside, and that which is great in the probability field of the man outside. The same is true for women. Slightly different archetypes, slightly different energy, slightly different tone. The point is, there was a murder, there was a massacre. Faces of gods and goddesses were buried alive in the mud to protect the prissy facade of the cultural appearance game. And in doing so, the psyche was split and rendered unable to reach even a small potential, a small degree of its potential. This failure to reach the potential is laid at the hands and at the feet of the child. Now that we've cut you up into bits, now that we've worn you so thin and brittle that you can barely move without breaking, go out and make something of your life. Don't break the contract, don't break the rules, but live a full life. It's hollow words. The foundation that would underpin such an intention was cut away long ago. And the contract, which always includes a deep clause in secrecy. You see, the last line of every contract is, this contract doesn't exist. You know you're dealing in the dark shadow range when your government officials, sanctioned, of course, because this is how we externalize the cultural game that we're in on a larger scale of government. You know, the CIA comes and pays you a visit, and how do they conclude it? This visit never happened. That's how you know you're in the domain of what's really going on. You have the puppet appearance. And then you have the deep programs of murder and betrayal. It's always there. This never happened. If you value your family, if you don't want to be bloody murdered, you don't talk about the truth. Signed. So, you now have a present self that feels alone, feels empty, feels sad, feels meaningless, feels depressed, feels tired. In Iron John's The Wild Man, this is the point where you want your golden ball back. Well, the ball was buried under the collapsing riverbank as all the women stood around laughing. Now, you want to start redoing things, or you want to die. Surprising number of men, as they reach this point, want to kill themselves because it's too fucking painful. Understandably so. Half of them is already dead, and not a single living soul will support them in resurrecting the other half. Why not just join it in the grave and be done with it? It's an understandable sentiment. You start to talk about the contract and your kids, who you've already trained unconsciously in the same witchcraft as was done upon you. Say, oh, Dad, let's not be negative today, okay? We're going to take you out to a nice little beach area. You look at the waves. You see, now they're doing the same thing back. You betrayed your kids, now they betray you. So, but you will say, no, this is important. No, Dad, don't stress yourself. Don't try and dig out of the muddy pit. You're old, you'll be dead soon. We don't want to talk about this. We're busy climbing the corporate ladder. Our new YouTube vlogging is taking off. We need you to be a cheerful, happy dad because that's what a shadow-resistant culture likes. So could you smile, just, okay, we're done with you, Dad. We just wanted to show how nice our parental relationships were, and off we go, vlogging. And of course, we don't care about our own feelings. We care about how we look on camera. That's the God we pray to is appearances, not substance and feelings. So off we go, and the present is trying to say, no, wait. And they're already gone. The heaviness sets in. You see it in a certain way, suicide is saying it's not okay. I couldn't fight you in words. You were too smart for me. You got me before I could speak. But no, it is not okay. If it was okay, then why did I kill myself? So I'll leave you with that to think about. But addiction is just another form of killing and suppressing the self. It's saying, those feelings are coming up, but let's just push them down again. It's saying, well, yeah, I feel hostility, but hostility is not on the menu. That was one of the things I agreed to cut off. I feel hurt. I don't think I can get out of this. So I want to hurt you. Oh, not on the menu. You were never hurt. And if you have a positive attitude, you can get out of it. And no child of mine ever feels hostility about anything. The word doesn't even exist. So you're my cheerful little boy, right? Okay, very good. So it's a normal process of denial and hiding, because what you're looking at with addiction is a couple of things, but one level is becoming conscious of the taboo. So the taboo is the hand sticking up out of the ground. They tried to bury it, but you can't kill the soul. So she keeps calling. You cannot kill the soul. You can chop her up into 14 pieces. You can scatter them in the winds. And it will wait for time. And the energy will start lifting and pushing. Come back, look at me. And the more you cut her up, the longer you left her rotting in the dark place, filled with lies and shame, the uglier she will be when you dig her up out of the ground, right? You don't get to take a beautiful goddess, chop her up to small pieces, scatter her around, stomp on her, pour sewage all over it, and then say, where's my beautiful goddess? Where is she? Is she here? Is she there? It's the great perfection game, right? The immense hostility at the humanity that's there, at what's growing, the immense disdain. You see these women online, right? Real human beings, write to them. Oh, you're not perfect enough for me. Why should I bother going on a date? No one's perfect enough for me. You know, the collusion with the dad, or the superiority of the dad. Little me, my cute little butt. The amount of self-loathing in murdering the king, murdering the God within the self, and then lasering in. It's one of the reasons Elon Musk is getting so much hostility. I mean, they tried to kill him hundreds of times. He just keeps on creating and blessing the world with new technology. They hate him. Absolutely hate him. Now, within the domain of feelings, fantasies, behavior, truths, and places to look. You signed a contract not to go into certain rooms. The story of Bluebeard. You know, it comes along, you can stay and marry in my kingdom, but you can never look in this one room. Story of the little boy next to the pool. You can't dip your hair in the water. There's this one area you cannot go. The story of the garden. You can't eat this one tree. It starts right in the pinnacle of mythology. You can't be whole. Every part of the garden you can go, but not here. Every feeling you can feel, but not this one. Every truth you can contemplate, but you can never talk about this. It's right in the pinnacle of the mythology, the basis of the taboo secret. You see, the circle, the sphere, the whole, has no taboo. There's no garbage in innocence. There's no garbage in unconsciousness. Unconsciousness is vastly bigger than the conscious mind and vastly more complex, which is why we can't deal with it. So we just focus on a little zoom-in lens, and that's good and that's bad, and we sit there judging everything. There's the taboo. I don't know how to deal with this, so you can't talk about it. I don't know how to feel this, so you can't point out this thing that makes me feel that. I don't want to look weak, so you can't say this thing that makes me look weak. Got it? If you do, you're thrown out of the kingdom. If you play along, well, I'll give you everything you want. This is the voice of Satan, the devil. Just do this and you can have all that you want, just all the world and earthly treasures. It's the voice of the cult. Just don't say anything embarrassing. Just arrive in a tie and suit you could be over in India, just tie and suit. Play the game. We know it's dumb, but don't say it's dumb. We know it's dumb, but don't say it's dumb. Play the game, and all this can be yours. All my heart's desires, all my truths, my psyche, my whole problem. No, that can't be yours. That was cut off right away. But you can have the appearance of greatness. You'll be given a corner office doing something you hate as opposed to a cubicle doing something you hate. You can be given an expense account, buying crap you don't need as opposed to no expense account, not to buy crap you don't need. So isn't that important? You can drive this vehicle, which is a grand vehicle, difficult to park, but everyone will think how grand you are. You just can't talk about this. So this is the taboo, and for some people, 75% of it is taboo. For others, it's 20%. It doesn't matter. If you're an addict, there's a domain that you are forbidden to look. And that domain is putting up a hand out of the mud and saying, look at me. Look at me. Help me get out of this pit. You need me to be whole. And that part doesn't fit into dinner parties. In the cult hierarchy, it might fit very well in a dinner party with a hermit or with some tribe dancing through the night, but it doesn't fit in the dinner party around here, the civilized dinner party, where the truth is not welcome. So there's a bit here that's trying to come out, and it's saying, help me out of the pit. And then you've got these young parts, which went through the process of repeated betrayal, violation, and helplessness and trauma of trying to protect the abuser, to invite the abuser in and collude with the abuser. And we can see this going on nationally with other countries. We look at the relationship, for example, with the United States and all the different countries in the world. And a country might try and defend its borders. And lies and domination and bribes and secret underhanded meetings and bombs and intimidation are used to violate the boundary. Say, we are going to have a base here, and this is what's going to happen. And when our men rape your daughters, you're not going to talk about it and go to the press, or we will punish you. You got that? Okay, let's be clear here. Now, we're liberating the country, right? This isn't an abusive relationship. Sign here. Okay, very good. Came over to the Native Americans. You're freely relinquishing your lands, right? Of course, we'll poison you with blankets of this and that. We'll do this. We'll shoot you. We'll do this, that, but all up and up, right? Canadian government will kidnap the natives for civilization. The Australian government, same thing. We're going to kidnap Aborigines, kill them, rape them, civilize them. All on the up and up, right? Sign here. And we'll dump toxic oil in the Brazilian jungle where they're bathing. We won't tell them that they're going to get cancer. Why should we? We're the civilizers. We're the perfecters, right? We don't have any shadow. We're bringing good bits of paper, more bits of paper to this country. Give you a big loan, a bribe to take the loan, then a big loan to flood half of an area. Then you have to hire our companies, which give us kickbacks and let us launder money. Then we'll just devastate a whole area and put you in debt. Now you have to do what we say. How about that? Weaken the integrity of the core self. Shrink the diversity of the culture around the world. We're taking the probability field of the species and we're narrowing it down. Why should we learn your language? Learn English. It's easier for us. And the species thought diversity becomes narrower. The species cultural diversity becomes narrower. Why should we grow? Just come down to our size, put in a McDonald's. Where's the Starbucks? And we're so dumb we don't even know how dumb we are. It's sad. But this is what happened to each of us as a child. This is what we're living through today. And as we try and advocate for truth, to go into this taboo area and see some of the stuff that we don't talk about, the young ones that stayed alive, that survived, felt security, felt love and belonging, and felt esteem, these pull on in a tug of war. They pull in a tug of war. And they say, don't look there. You'll die. Don't think that. They'll find out. Don't feel that. You'll die. Don't do that any differently. Don't dig him out of the pit. Don't feel the pain. Do whatever you have to do to avoid the taboo area. So this is the formation then of the coping mechanism. The coping mechanism is the formulation for survival by the young adaptive self that was incapable of defending the sovereignty of the psyche. It has a couple of agendas. Number one, protect the abuser, because the abuser can kill you if you're not participating in the abuse. Number two, ensure needs. So the contract is not a one-way contract, it's a mutual contract. You will give me enough food, you will smile at me, you won't beat me too often, you won't do this and that and the other. You will let me be named part of this house, you won't murder me in my sleep, and I will never mention your grandmother's rape. I will never do this. I will never talk about hate. I will never mention the fact that I feel terrified of you. Instead, I'll say, thank you for loving me. And so it will ensure the needs. So protect the abuser, ensure the needs. Avoid consciousness, particularly in our culture where we're all rational and nothing bothers me and I'm ordinary and this and that and the other. So how do you pretend that you're so ordinary and rational when there's all this stuff that you refuse to talk about, even if it kills you? Well, you have to be unconscious about it. So how are you going to do that? Well, maybe you could eat too much or have too much sugar or drink too much alcohol. Okay, do it. These parts say, have at it. Start destroying the body. Now, the other thing that these parts do is sabotage success that threatens the contract. So, how does that work? Well, when I have enough money, I am going to go traveling and learn about other parts of the world. No, the abuser doesn't want you to think like, we're number one, we're number one, we're number one. If you travel around the world, you might find out that we're last in some areas. You can't travel the world. But I want to travel the world, I just need some money. Okay, well, you won't get any money then. As soon as you're going to get a promotion, I'll come in and stab you. I'll make you say something weird that lets that. Okay, you want to go into the taboo area? Okay, in your job interview, you can talk about your, you can say one sentence that illustrates that you're unusual, and then you'll lose the interview. Great, okay, then you won't get any money, and we won't go into this again, and you'll know, you see, we're not supposed to talk about these things. So, sabotage success that threatens the contract. Now, you're in the present, and these are beliefs. If I speak about this, I will die. If I cry like this, my mother will hate me and I will die. If I shriek with rage, everyone will abandon me and I will have no survival skills. If I do this, okay, so I will never shriek with rage, I will never do this, I will never do this and this. And these are a set of beliefs. Now you are now doing this work, having lived by this contract for 10, 20, 30 years, 40, 50, 60 years. You're now trying to challenge those beliefs and saying, well, what if I can talk about the truth? What if I could find a man? Could I find a man anywhere in this entire country where I can talk about the truth? Oh, you're never going to find that. Look, you started to tell the truth to this guy, he ran off. That guy ran off. See, he doesn't exist. No, don't do it. Don't talk about it. Well, I'm sure 360 million people, I'm sure there's a man or two that would like to talk about this. No, he doesn't exist. No. He'll kill you, abandon you, betray you, cheat you. And everyone will laugh because they know what the contract is. They weren't born yesterday. They know what you're doing. Don't break the contract. So you're trying to get the guy out of the ground, the guy that'll allow you to be a human being. Well, he wants to get out of the ground. And these childhood enablers, 4, 5, 6, 2-year-old, don't do it, we're going to die, quick, drink something, push him down. So this is the tension. It's a tug of war. You're in a fight with yourself. And you've got a contract and a survival system that kept you alive in this whole system. And now you've got some new beliefs and some newfangled ideas. Don't listen to this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. What kind of an idiot sits around making videos about this? So you've got a new set of beliefs, and they've got to be stronger than the old set of beliefs. And you've got to have a new contract with survival. How am I going to survive, feel secure, feel love and belonging and self-esteem if I break the contract? You see? And that's an unknown. How are you going to be? Well, I don't want to say I knew it. I shouldn't have even talked about it. See, now you just made me feel bad. Have another drink. Sleep some more. Eat some more potato chips. Watch some more TV. It doesn't matter, the addiction. Because we have the wound. We have the innocence that's being destroyed. We have the protector that first protects by defending and then protects by enabling the abuse. So we have enablement. Then down here we have the wound. It's like, oh, this is so heavy, I want to die. I will do anything to get out of this fucking pain. Oh, well, just work for another promotion, go there. No, I don't think so. I'm just going to die. Well, take a little time off. This happens to the best of us, and then come back and you can be a corporate Wall Street raper again in just a few months. And we won't say anything about this little incident. You've been good to this firm for 20 years and turned lots of paper into more paper. And we like people like you. So take a little break. Don't talk about this too much. You know, maybe could you tell us a lie? Maybe your wife's getting pregnant, and then we won't have to be uncomfortable around you. And your virus of truth and decency won't spread to any of the other people. And I'm using a lot of stereotypes here. This happens in all areas. You should see the new age crap that goes on with workshop providers and, you know, this and that and the other. So this is stereotypical. But in any system, there is a taboo. You know, you go to the new age channelers. What are you feeling grateful for today? Oh, I'm feeling grateful about this and that and the other. Don't talk about that. That's negative. Or even worse. You know, so it's not about saying, you know, stockbrokers are evil and new age channelers are wonderful or anything like that. It's you know, I'm just using some rather tired stereotypes to illustrate the domain. So we have the present beliefs that have to be developed. Well, that takes work. I mean, you had all this nicely there easily. It was butchered away from you, and you had to work really hard to butcher it away from yourself to survive. Now you have to work really hard to get it back. You know, it's incredibly awkward. But that's the domain. And you have the hate and fear that is directed at you from the abuser and the cult. You have the diversion and the distraction and the denial. Like, everything's great, I'm loved, nothing's going on, don't want to talk about anything. Diversion, just happily going along. This is the woman who sees a, you know, sadistic, you know, drunken man filled with hostility. Oh, let's just make this man happy, give him some sex, and we'll just go along and do this and do that. The world's a beautiful place. So we've got the diversion, you know, pie in the sky type domain. Then we've got this domain down here that's so heavy. It's like, oh, I can't deal with this. I'm covered in 8 feet of dirt, and I can't lift it off. And I'm just buried down here. And I can't move, and if I open my mouth, mud goes in, and it's dark, and it's horrible. It's like, okay, come up here into diversion. Nothing's happening. Let's have another drink. Anyone have a nice topic to avoid what that last person had to say? We don't want to get down into these dark areas. here, because we might have to feel the rage. We might have to deal and confront the violence that was done to us and the hostility we feel about being buried that deep in the mud. I want to say one more thing before closing, and it's about compulsion. Because you might have the diversion, the cocaine, the whatever up here, the pie in the sky, and you see it in the tight faces of San Francisco divas who are going around judgmentally with their little scarves, and they make their rounds to the Tibetan Buddhist places, and there's this and there's this, and everything's wonderful, but they're so, any little bit that breaks off of the spiritual path is horrible. And of course they can't say that because that would be judgmental, but they're thinking it and writing you off. You have no value. Where's your scarf? Why didn't you do this? And so you have this narrow little route where this is the acceptable me, where I'm positive and just wrote this in my journal. But I feel no energy. I feel numb. I feel dissociative. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not getting anywhere. I don't have any traction in the world. I can't stand to be around this person, or I feel drained, and I can't do this, or I feel so tired, and I'm not contributing anything rich and meaningful to the vitality. And again, it's just stereotype, but it's important to separate the game or the facade from the underlying energy. Because when you're whole, you are radiant with vitality, and you are contributing a presence that is unlike almost any adult presence. And that presence has been marginalized. Going back to the thing, we don't celebrate someone for having a Down syndrome child because they're never going to lose that presence. You see, the IQ that we elevate to such a high level is the very mechanism we will use to program the person to abandon their own innocence. Someone with a low IQ can't be programmed into violating their own innate goodness. And so they'll be alive with presence for 20 years as opposed to just 1 or 2 years. And we pity people who are still in touch with their own innocent goodness. And so we also have that range, I see it in myself, where to the degree that I'm kind and present and will look and talk about these taboo issues is to the degree that I'm punished and avoided. To the degree that I'll be cynical and articulate and make money and be dominant, I'm rewarded. This cult says, we want that part of you. Come on out. We'll give you tons of money. You want a job? Oh, you can crush it. Go kill them, right? Hundreds of thousands. Here, take it. Bits of paper. What? You care about that homeless person? Nah, that's not the kind of people we like at the table. And no, we don't want to hear their story. No, what were you thinking? Give them some money. And then separate. Those are those people over there. So there's this constant programming as the adult. But what I want to close just by mentioning is that in the domain of compulsion, so what am I talking about compulsion? Well, Bill Gates used to rock like this. You can see it in his hearings with the antitrust Microsoft suit. So you have this, you have compulsive repetitive behavior, smoking. Jogging. I'm going to get this done, and then I'm going to get this done, and then I'm going to get this done, and get this done, and get this done, and I'm going to get this done, and achieve all these goals, and this, and this, and this. I've achieved thousands of goals in my life. I thought that would be a better addiction than cocaine or something, and, in terms of accomplishing things, it is. So you have this repetitive behavior. And what you're doing with a repetitive behavior or a repetitive substance intake is you're taking the whole spectrum of the psyche that's overwhelming, and you don't know what to do with because you've been punished for exploring it rather than invited into it. And that's one reason you might want to go out and travel or start exploring the world of psychedelics. Not amphetamines, not cocaine, specifically in a very conscious and therapeutic setting, with tremendous healing and reverence for that potential. A psychedelic journey that will break down the repetitive barriers and allow you access to the full circle again for a few hours and get some sense of what parts have been buried. Now, if you have the courage and you don't think you're going to die for doing that, because you're breaking the contract, basically. You're saying, I am going to see this and I am going to talk about this, even though nobody wants me to. I'm going to do it anyway. What? Even though no one wants you? Yeah, nobody wants you. I'm going to do it anyway. What if they kill you? What if nobody hires you? What if they don't frequent the business anymore? That's how they do it, right? We don't do business with those types of people. What? My skin color? Give me a break. And that's how you kill someone off. That's how you set the contract. Now, if you do that, you break out of the narrow behavior. Now, when you're in too much pain to face the wound, what a repetitive pattern does, repetitive thinking, I think the same thought over again, poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me. It's a good one. It's an anesthetic. It's very easy to think repetitively, poor me about this, poor me about that, poor me. What we're doing is we're narrowing the field of from wide spectrum absorbing and responding to lots of information to we're managing that overwhelm and stimulation by creating what's called a narrow beam perspective, a narrow beam focus for attention. And this is to manage overwhelm. And one of the things, there are some rules. You need to tell the truth if you want to break addictions. You need help. Because all of the cult conspired to shove you down the addictive hole. The entire cult conspired to shove you down the addictive hole. You need a circle that's going to help you out. You need a circle that's going to help you out. This is where a 12-step program is a good place to begin, because you're acknowledging a higher power, and it certainly doesn't have to be Christian or just a higher power. It's not hard to imagine consciousness more intelligent than this culture. And so if you have some humility, it's out there. You have to figure out what it is, and that's hard to believe in when you've been surrounded by idiots a lot of your life. But truth-telling, need for help, need to help the young one. Now, these go hand in hand. And so if you understand that the whole purpose of the taboo is to block parts of the truth, parts of your truth, beauty, and goodness are being blocked by being turned into garbage, by being filtered through a paradigm that is not sophisticated enough to honor them. So what I mean by that is, like we get an item in the mail, and we say, this is packaging, and its only purpose is to protect this item while it was in the mail. It is now no longer in the mail. Therefore, I don't want it. It's done. Therefore, it is garbage. So I'm going to throw it away, and then the truck will deal with it. Now, this is actually a tremendously compact form of resource. We just don't know what to do with it, because we're not educated enough to know how to recalibrate energy out of plastic and all that. We don't know. We're woefully uninformed coming out of high school or college about all kinds of things. And so we don't know what to do with it, so we say it's garbage. Well, the culture doesn't know what to do with most of us, so it says, just put it away, would you? We don't know what to do with this, just put it away. We certainly don't know what to do with psychedelic consciousness, so we're going to ban it, even though it has no health risks over the last 10,000 years in multiple cultures, even though dolphins will get high on pufferfish, which are neurotoxins. A dolphin will bite a pufferfish, and then they'll sit around in a circle, and they'll pass the pufferfish, and the pufferfish will try and kill them by producing neurotoxin. But there's this little margin where the dolphin gets high if they don't take too much of the neurotoxin. It kills them if they take all of it. So they pass the pufferfish around, get high on altered consciousness, and sit around hanging out. That's what dolphins do. So even though this is built into the biology, even though it's part of nature's design for creativity and diversity of consciousness, even though cultures have been doing this for tens of thousands of years, we don't have any place for it around here, so we're going to call it a Schedule 1 drug. Mushrooms. You grow a mushroom. Schedule 1. No redeeming ability. Completely banned from scientific research. And you go to jail for growing a mushroom that's wild, or for having the audacity of picking it into your mouth and learning anything. Well, what do you do with a cult that is so terrified of diversity, truth, beauty, and goodness that they will lock their own people up at $80,000 a year for eating a native plant that has zero health problems? Zero. You could take 1 million people, give them each a psilocybin mushroom, a Stropharia cubensis, and not a single person would die from physical stuff to the body. However, by the time our culture is done with 1 million people, some of them would be terrified of what they were seeing and go mad with terror. So we've conditioned. But you take a tribal person who's not terrified of truth and stuff, no big deal. And so this plants are a potential resource in breaking certain kinds of addiction. For example, ibogaine has been shown to help with heroin addiction, things like that. My addiction personally has been sugar, food, and a compulsive behavior, and control. So getting hyper bossy, frantically achieving goals, criticizing things, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough, numbing myself with sugar or eating too much so that I can't think and sleep sometimes, just running from things. So that's my personal addiction, but what, just to complete this thought, if you're stuck in an overwhelm, what you need is a very safe and protective circle. Now, this could be stabilizing alone, taking a few days to be completely alone, just journaling, writing, drawing. The things that you're hiding from yourself, you can explore in poetry, you can explore in drawing, you can explore in clay, you can explore in masks, you can explore in painting masks that you buy, you can explore in fiction, you can explore in what you're drawn to, you can explore in your dreams, you can explore in your diary, and you can explore in therapeutic support circles, workshops, etc. The thing to understand is that you've generally got to be on your own side enough that even if the entire rest of the room is not willing or capable of owning in themselves what is true for you, that you're not going to abandon yourself. Because we raise a cult of fanatical deniers and numb and sociopathic people. So the odds are that if you're being really real, that the crowd isn't ready for it. And that doesn't matter if you're ready for it. And this is where prayer and meditation to something higher, meaning more complex and intelligent than what we're dealing with in religious circles, down here, more complex than what's down here, is important. I once did some constellation therapy in which I didn't really like the constellation therapist, and you can look up constellation therapy. And I didn't trust human beings because my therapist had just sexually abused me. You know, when your therapist fucks you up after your parents fuck you up in a complete culture of denial, it's like, oh yeah, you're going to trust the next human being? No, I wanted I wanted to engage with consciousness that was outside the human set. And so I choreographed the therapist into embodying several different deities. And as soon as I was in the presence of those deities, I had complete and utter integration and peace, because I wasn't dealing with human beings. There was nothing wrong with me, meaning the deity could connect with, balance, integrate, and harmonize with every single part of me that was there, so there was nothing wrong. Now, as soon as I began interacting with a therapist again, or with other human beings, all kinds of, this is so heavy, this is so scary, this is because you're dealing with two imperfect humans, and they can't bridge the gap in a healthy, integrated flow. What I'm getting at is if you connect with the right deity, the right energy of consciousness, suddenly you're perfect. And you don't have to addict to hide that feeling, because nobody's scared of that feeling. That deity isn't. You're in a place of complete peace and symmetry. And you're met, and you're understood, and you're seen, and you see. And it's beautiful. You get to be beautiful, true, and good as you are without it being fully articulated. The deity bridges the gap. What we have so much in our cult is a lack of relationship training, and we have all these gaps between human beings without the technology to bridge the gap. And so you have disconnection. So you have the pain of disconnection. Then you have the fear of that pain, and then that just goes into all these different paranoias and fears, etc. So bridging, learning relationship skills is actually a very important thing. It's one of the reasons I'm so interested in 10x community, 10xliving.org. You can bridge the gaps when you have time and you have context and technology to do so. So that was a really good eye-opener to the awareness that in the right presence, because truly you can do absolutely nothing with yourself and spend your whole life looking around, and maybe you find one perfect human being who can love and accept and bring out the best of you exactly as you are without you doing any growth or any change or anything. And that might be possible. But the more you do your own work and bridge, the more you can bring that out in another human being, because they're perfect too with the right person. You just don't know how to overcome mom's fear of remembering her childhood rape, or dad's fear of looking out of control. And if you talk about it, that's even worse, because he doesn't want to admit that he's afraid of being out of control because that's weak, and all these tangled knots woven by the cult and embodied by him. He doesn't know how to get through all that, and you don't know how to get through all that. And so you try and connect, and the more closer you get, the more he attacks you, and it's miserable. A nonverbal deity just moves right through that. Dad feels loved and accepted. Can you bring that presence in? Can you learn that? It's like, well, where do you learn it? Nobody's teaching it. That's the problem. That's why relationship technology, spiritual technology, presence technology, the technology of the feminine is the single most valuable thing that we can develop as a species right now. And naturally, within the framework of chauvinism, we're not doing it. You see, because we've set up the game, going back to Cain and Abel, we've set up the game to say that the more masculine you are, the better you are. Why? We just made it up that way. So if you're assertive, oh, that's good. You're a leader, that's good. Well, why is it good to be a leader? Because it's not good to be a follower. Well, what's the value of a leader? Well, they're a leader. Well, are they a leader if nobody follows them? No, other people, weak, unimportant people, they have to follow you. But you're a leader. It's like, so if nobody follows me, I don't get to have any value. Right. So they decide how valuable I am by whether they follow me or not. Yeah. So they have all the power. So why are you saying the leader is the important one, not the follower? The followers are the one that choose the leader. So if the leader's important, the people who choose the leaders have to be more important. No. We don't care about any of that logic. Be a leader. Don't be a follower. Why? The followers are more important. We don't want to talk about that. This is chauvinism at its core. Be assertive. Be a self-made man. What do you mean? I didn't make a single thing. I didn't make this ring. I didn't make this camera. I didn't make the blackboard. I didn't make the microphone. I didn't make this coat. I didn't design this style. I didn't make this body. My parents did. Doesn't matter. Don't think. Be a self-made man. I didn't make this ring either. Shut up. Be a self-made man. So, we have this insanity of chauvinism, and we set up the game that if you're more masculine, you're a winner. If you're feminine, you're a loser. The only problem is we need more feminine energy than we need masculine energy at this point in our evolution. Okay, we need it. So who wants to play the low-ranking feminine role? Who wants to receive? Who wants to be emotional? Who wants to follow? Who wants to say yes? Who wants to focus on the inner world? All those low-status things within our cult, right? We set up the rules. We decide who the winners are going to be, and then we say, anyone want to lose? Anyone want to lose? Well, we are losing. We're miserable, we're depressed, we're suicidal, we're addicted, our relationships are failing. All of those things require feminine traits to resolve, meaning men and women have to become more feminine, more emotional, more relationally literate, more trauma literate, more addiction literate, more parenting literate. We need all that. But we're not going to teach it in school. And we're going to shame anyone who goes down that road. But we need it desperately. We're crazy in essence. So when you're dealing with a stupid cult that will happily kill you, rape you, and destroy the entire species rather than admit its own stupidity, it traumatized you at birth into believing you had to go along with this bullshit, otherwise you'd die. It left you buried under there for 40, 50 years. Without a single person around you championing you to grow, how are you going to do this? Well, that's where I think conscious, intentional lifestyle and community is part of shifting the cult, to create micro-cults that are intelligent, 10xliving.org. But whether you do it in the outer cult or create your own cult or create a support group, you need truth-telling. You need help, and addiction groups are good places to go for that. And you need to help the young one inside yourself. You need to go back to this one who wasn't protected because they were this big. And when the parent tried to cut him open with the sword, they couldn't defend themselves, so they became colluders with the abusers to avoid helplessness, to feel powerful. You need to go back and protect that infant and be there for them. And in the process, you will understand that you are worthy because you are saying that that infant is worthy, and that is where you grew out of. So you're worthy too. If the infant is worthy, you're worthy. If the infant is not worthy and everything you are grew out of that infant, how are you worthy? You've got to demonstrate that the infant is worthy. And you've got to receive help. Now, when you give help, because that infant is worthy, then you're worthy of receiving help. So those two go hand in hand. If you say your infant is not worthy of help, and why would you want to waste time with your infant? Why would any higher power want to waste time with you? It's the same relationship. It's not logical. If you will love and adore and protect and celebrate that infant in you, then when you need help, you will understand that there is a magnification and up-octaving of that same dynamic, that there is a being that would love to help you. Because they're even more intelligent than you are. If you're intelligent enough to love your child and that being is more intelligent than you are, then it's going to love you. And that's just how it works. So I hope this has been informative. The underlying phenomena with addiction is two belief systems in conflict. A coping, adaptive, and traumatized child that believes that destroying the self to protect certain secrets is the best way to survive. And you, who's tired of being sabotaged and destroyed, etc., and seeing the damage that that strategy is doing, that's seeing whether you're serious enough to provide a new alternative on the table. Good luck, and let me know how it works for you.